6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Guitar Stories Podcast, your number one show for everything guitar.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode number 78 of the Guitar Stories Podcast. Dan, do you always think, like, do you like that little number one guitar show? Do you always say that along with it, or is it just me?
No. I usually I just like finish that sentence, and funnily enough, sometimes if I do the podcast edit, it kind of abruptly stops at your number one show, and then it's gone. And this is my favorite
That's
part, right? And another time it said your number one show for everything. I can live with that, right?
I'm good with that. And I'm sure that our lovely viewers and listeners will agree that we are the number one show for everything.
Everything.
Speaking of everything, we have some interesting gear picks. We have one interesting pick of the week this week.
Do you want to tease a little bit? Yeah, we have different interesting picks this week. Yeah,
that's my tease.
Okay, but we also have a great guest, right?
We have an absolutely wonderful guest. I can't wait to speak to him. Well, we already have spoken to him. It's all this backstage stuff. I never know how to balance backstage with on stage, and that would be proven if you came to my show, my gig last week, which I guess is the biggest news of the week. Thinking about it.
Yeah, can you fill us in a little bit more how it went and everything?
I had maybe the best show of my life, and I've been playing for 25 years.
Wow.
It was phenomenal. It was not note perfect. There were mistakes. There were arrangement mistakes. There were lyrical mistakes. I almost fell over at one point. Nay, 3 times. But the energy that we all put into that show, considering the bass player's been in the band for only 5 rehearsals, and 3 weeks ago the drummer almost broke his foot, and we worked really, 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 really hard at putting on a show. I had one of the best times on stage I've ever had. It was just so much fun, and the people there was this electric energy, and I was trying to channel like Freddie Mercury and who else? Well, Jimi Hendrix, of course, and Keith Richards was on. Steve was doing a great Keith Richards, and I was trying to channel some Mick Jagger and some Joe Cocker. It was truly phenomenal. Everybody played wonderfully, and the feedback was fantastic, and I had a great time.
That's amazing to hear. You sent a couple snippets, and I got to say, you didn't only channel your inner Keith, not Keith Richards, but Mick Jagger. You also channeled your inner Hendrix, because your strat-tone was amazing. That sounded amazing. Really good, yeah. Yeah,
with 2 guitars in the band, we had to really separate the tones, and we were both using Fender Deluxe Tone Masters at one point, and Steve was playing a Tele, and I was playing a Strat. Oh no, I was playing the SG, the Maybach SG, this one just here, the Albatross, and it wasn't quite right, and we went through several guitar changes and thousands of pedal changes, and I ended up with the Marshall SV20C Plexi combo with a Strat at the neck pickup, and it just chef's kiss. I barely had to do anything. It was great.
Cool. Did you have one of those moments where everything kind of falls in place and it all clicks? Because this is the part that I enjoy the most, when you're in the heat of the battle, and then all of a sudden you kind of realize now everyone is kind of in the flow and everything is just going effortlessly.
Kind of, yeah. It was more like falling down a hill and not being able to stop yourself, and the end of the set was at the bottom.
Okay.
It was like, once we started, it was like, okay, that's it now. We're freewheeling. We've got to get to the end of the show now. There was that in the zone. We'd had to have amazing moments. What was great as well, my kids were there, and it was as we started playing, it went from daytime into nighttime, and it all got dark, and it was really cool to see my kids experience that. And because I was dressed up, I had a full show stage costume on. It was definitely a show, not just for 40-year-olds plugging into amps and rocking out. It was As Steve put it, he didn't expect 30% of what happened, which was, I thought, a specific number. But
Is he an engineer? What?
well, no, he's not. But he is a very specific person.
Okay. 35.5.
Yeah. But yeah, I had wonderful. So I just want to say to anybody who's playing a show soon or has played shows or is not playing shows at the moment, go play shows. That's the reason we're here. That's the reason we do this. And all these wonderful gear acquisitions we have, useless if you don't put them to use. So
That is right. Did I tell you about my latest gear acquisition?
I believe you sent some photos, but fill us in.
No, I didn't. The gear that I wanted to talk about is actually a pedal called the Halo pedal. And
All right. Oh, really?
today I received the notification that it's due for tomorrow. And I was so disappointed. I was
So
so,
that'll be-
disappointed.
I'm going to guess you're going to be the only one on the show tonight that doesn't have one.
You're so mean. You're so
I'm looking
mean.
at one right now, Daniel. Looking at it right there, staring at me. Those beautiful knobs and buttons. Yeah, so we've got Robert Keeley on the show tonight. Absolute, I don't know, legend is too strong a word and also too weak a word. You know, it gets banded around, the word legend. But I broke my first pedal thanks to Robert because I was doing the Keeley mod on my DS1. So, you know, we go way back, Robert and I, in my brain. So, my skills are nowhere near his. Yeah, it's going to be a great show. We've done the backstage banter. It's all set up. The technical side is working.
Fingers
Can't
crossed.
wait. Let's just say hello to the people in the live chat. We've got Valeria, of course. We've got Poo Ninja. We've got Amanda. We've got Tobias. We've got Keith. We've got April. We've got Buzzle. We've got Rick. We've got many. Sarang is here. We've got all this chat is going nuts. Melogify. I never know if it's Melogify or Melogify. What do you think?
Melogify? I don't know. Fill us in.
Yeah, let us know, Melogify. Is it like a log, like wood, or lodge, like logical? Studio McKeel is also here, as is Fergie in France. If you're listening to the audio version, also welcome to the show. Should we do some news?
Yeah.
Some real news, not just personal, I did a good show news.
Well, you did a good show, obviously, but of course.
Yeah. Before we do, shall we bring Robert in for the news? Because I think this particular piece of news we have is something that Robert would have an opinion on. Do you have any kind of introduction prepared for Robert?
Well, I can wing it because it's fairly easy.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. So today we welcome Robert Keeley, who's not just the term Godfather of Loud is already taken by Jim Marshall, but he's definitely the godfather of tinkering, the godfather of pedals, and the godfather of great tone. And because tone, we thought it would be great to have him on the show because Andy's a big pedal guy, and I also enjoy an occasional pedal. And it's a privilege to have him on the show. He just created one of the pedals that I've been lusting for, I think 2 or 3 years since the first time that Andy filled me in about the idea. And it's so cool to actually be able to talk to him and go a little bit deeper into the development of that pedal, about his view on the business side of things as well. And just have him on the show because it's always a privilege to talk to those great guys from our industry.
Okay, well then, let's bring him on. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Robert Keeley. Hello, Robert Keeley.
Hello, folks.
Hello, Robert.
You guys
just
are far too kind.
Well, we'll see if it lasts. Energy levels are high.
Yeah.
Sarang has said that Robert Keeley is the man who put pedals under every guitarist's feet. If that's not in your bio, Robert, it needs to be. That's
Man, I like
wonderful
that
little-
one. Serene, that's
good, isn't
great.
it?
That's a great one. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll try to put a pedal under everyone's foot.
Yeah, well, we're going to bring us some news, which is about Andy Mooney, the CEO of Fender, has been talking about parts shortage. And Robert, I'm sure you have some opinions on that. One of the specifics that Andy mentioned was that parts that used to cost 30 cents are now costing $30. Is this something that you can echo?
Yeah, there is been several instances where parts have exploded in cost. I have one recently where it was 300% overnight increase in a D to A converter or an A to D converter, and it seems that there's like a business. Uh, it's almost like scalping, where parts distributors, parts brokers, are purchasing up the world supply of one part that Texas Instrument makes, and then the whole family of parts. So they buy them up, and then they relist them on these parts management procurement type software sites, and they list them up there, and literally the price went, in this case, for this codec, went up from like $1.50, $1.80 to $4.50, literally overnight, and it and so yeah, there's cases like that. There's cases where something, during COVID, parts would get stuck in customs and out in the port of Long Beach or something like that. And so there's been a lot of cases where parts have been hard to source, or the price has just gone through the roof. If you look at vacuum tubes and all kinds of other parts, it's crazy what's happened recently, for certain.
So is it actually a shortage, or is it a shortage because people are buying up these parts and reselling?
No, it is a shortage because I don't recall the exact date, but I think it was approximately a year ago, a year and a half ago now. There was a fire at a plant that made codecs for A to D converters and D to A converters in Japan, and so that caused us to redesign the Hydra pedal, which had just been out for, I think, 4 months at the time, and had to completely redesign the board because they weren't going to have chips. They weren't predicting for a whole year. So I don't
Wow.
even know where they are with that, because we had to move on to a Texas Instruments product. You know what I mean? So it is crazy. So sometimes there are no parts, and so it's crazy. I don't have an example like Fender from 30 cents to $30, but if there just aren't any parts, then yes, I've seen pretty outrageous part prices for something that should be a couple pennies, and it was $35. But it's, you just go, well, we're not going to use that part anymore. We're going to have to redesign and come up with an alternate solution. So yeah, sometimes the parts are crazy for nefarious reasons sometimes.
Sure.
And talking about a redesign of a pedal, how much additional work it goes into just replacing one part. I mean, it might possibly change between how important that part is, but is there a rough idea that you can give us how much of additional work
Sure.
that would be?
Yeah, for example, like on the example I used before, I think the product had come out in September, the Hydra or something like that, October, and by December we were hearing of the plant fire, and then I think it took us, um, again, I think it took us about 4 months to get in boards, because we had to figure out how to use the new parts. In this particular case, the AKM part was kind of a two-in-one part. It did the A to D and the D to A conversion, and it was in a single chip. So it was a nice, elegant, simple solution. And what we ended up having to go with was independent A to D and D to A converter chips, two different chips, and then, get it to work on our board. So the board was already, in the first place, it was a challenge for us, because it was the most complicated, high end thing that we had done at the time. Just recently, got to that board and that conclusion. So it was kind of a drag to have to redesign it right after it come out. So, but those things, you end up turning them around. It just, as we move through the Halo, um, we started with that board, and then, you know, we ended up questioning everything, our own existence. And, and at one point in time, I kid you not, Creighton had 4 different versions of the Halo board for us to listen to, with different grounding schemes and different layout schemes, so we could study the most minute noises that are generated in all kinds of circuits. But we wanted to see if any one of these possible ideas, could lead us to a better sound and lower noise. And so yeah, it's kind of crazy.
But it sounds like it's inspiring some necessity for creativity, which must always be good, unless it's really really janky.
Yeah, it is because working with Andy and his demanding ears was just such a great thing for the company because it all made us struggle so much more to first of all recognize what it is, then try to hypothesize, what we could do to create or get rid of that specific element that was bugging him or making him happy. And it was quite a challenge, you know what I mean? And when we're
Mhm.
listening, when you're listening to echoes and delays in front of really high gain amplifiers so that you can understand how the two are working together, you start hearing all kinds of little noises, and so then you start hunting down all those little problems, and it just got us a lot better at our own job crafting and having to go back and try so many things and see what worked out best,
Mhm.
so it was really awesome experience.
Good. Well, we're going to get into the Halo and the Andy
Yeah.
Timmons experience in a little bit, but it's nice to have a little tease and a little insight into, yeah, choosing parts. I mean, just being restricted by parts. It's not as widespread as we possibly could have it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
sometimes you're months waiting for parts to come in, and I talked to the other manufacturers, and they all described to me how it's uh, focused their design directions and product releases in different directions. They're like, oh, we can't build with that part, we can't seem to source that part, so we're going to release a different type of product, until
Mhm.
things get better. It's
Sure.
really odd.
Yeah, Dan and I, if I can speak for us both, we've noticed there's been a lack of gear releases, and some of that is the fact that it's summer, but some of that must be because of a parts shortage.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Definitely.
it's difficult to get certain types of microcontrollers. So if you want to have any presets or anything like that where you're requiring a little teeny microcomputer to help you along, yeah, you could be in a world of hurt then because there are lots of shortages of different microcontrollers.
Mhm.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And Robert, did you have to hold back some product developments or even product releases due to the shortage of parts?
Yes and no. It wasn't a big delay because we had decided to push back the product for other parts reasons. But yeah, it actually pushed back the Halo probably 3-4 months at least. I think we were going to release it in January,
Hmm.
and then we thought May, and then eventually June 10th
Sure.
is when it came out. So
Mm.
um, yeah, we definitely had to push stuff around, and
Mm.
some of the stuff that we're working on right now is ridiculously exciting, but we've gone through and we've started to nail down some of the core parts, and that's been a challenge. So yeah, it's a constant battle right now, and it does direct you, but I kind of push on my guys a lot in that arena to come up with alternate solutions. If we truly can't find the part, then we'll have to design it a different way. And I kind of famous for nagging about that kind of stuff, pushing us. So that's
Yeah.
what my job is.
Yeah. But I imagine like having the necessity to kind of rebuild or even rethink certain circuits or certain ideas also provides some additional degrees of freedoms in the future, even if the supply situation should be better, because you didn't maybe make decisions not just on availability of parts and also maybe the price of parts, but also on the sheer elegance of how it's been designed, or even really just like also the optimal tone that you can get from it, and not just like a good in between costs and tone.
Oh, exactly. Because we're trying to push ourselves constantly. So it we have we hope to have the freedom to be able to design whatever we can imagine, right? And when you come up with part shortages, you can either sit around and cry about it, or you can try to be creative again and try to push and work around, come up with other solutions, but which usually leads to more discovery and then more inspiration to build cooler sounding stuff. You know what I mean? So it's not all bad. It's just frustrating a little bit along the way. Having to be patient. I'm the one of the most impatient people. So sometimes when we're waiting months for things to happen, it
Yeah.
can get nerve wracking.
Reminds me of my boss. He always tells me diamonds are created under high pressure. So
Yes. That's
least this,
what happens here sometimes, for sure. You're
At
right.
least the shortage is universal. You know, it's not just affecting, say, you, Robert. It's affecting everybody. Therefore, it kind of levels the playing field a little bit, unless you are ahead of the game and are stockpiling stuff. But
No,
we should
and
get
as a
onto.
matter-
Sorry, please.
Oh no, you're right. No, we're not in a stockpiling parts position. As a matter of fact, it's been hard to do that over COVID. So no, you just have to be nimble. And I see other people like, there's a home stereo system like the Sonos stuff. Those have lots of microcontrollers, and the auto manufacturers using a lot of microcontrollers and codecs, and they got stuck because they couldn't afford to or just didn't want to redesign, and yeah, so it can cause big problems. It's across the playing field, like you said.
Yeah, it's not just the musical instrument world, that's for sure. It's,
Yeah.
It's probably now that my TV's going to break. I guarantee it. I got a feeling.
Oh no,
I guess I'll just have to play more guitar.
that's right.
Yeah. This kind of leads us nicely into our picks of the week, because Dan's pick of the week this week has a bit of a problem. So, Dan, would you mind going first in this week's pick of the week?
absolutely, please roll the jingle.
Dance, pick up the week. Dance, pick up the week.
I always like to see the guest reaction when we play that.
We need to get him on that Waze app where he's the voice. In a couple of miles, you're gonna turn left.
I've got ways. I've got Christina Aguilera as my guide at the moment.
Sweet.
What was
Come on,
it?
Dr.
Life-
Dan.
I like taking risks, but not on the road, she says all the time. Life is full of life is full of obstacles, but I'm a fighter. She does all these quotes
Wow.
about her own songs. I'm sure it can't actually be Christina Aguilera, but correct me if I'm wrong. Dan, your gear pick of the week, my friend.
Yeah, my gear pick of the week is a new amp from Mesa Boogie, and it's been long time in the making, and also, there was some sort of pause from the end of Mesa Boogie after being acquired from Gibson. I think they had to restructure some internal things, and now they released the first product under new ownership, which is the California Tweed 6V6 220, which is a smaller sized version of the original California Tweed, as displayed at the moment on the screen. And back in the day when the California Tweed got released, it was a rather, I don't know if it's true globally, but I think for Europe, a rather overlooked amplifier that not a lot of people had on their map. But to me, it always felt like it's a great tone and an amplifier that took pedals pretty well. And back in the day, I was able to play around with these amps, and they sounded great. And now having a multi-wattage version in a smaller size, I think it's just something that distills all the essence of that boogie approach and puts it into a smaller housing. And yeah, I like small amps that sound big, and this is I can't wait to finally try them out, because Boogie is just like my favorite amp brand. And having them seen already, stopping big amps like the Lone Star, which is, we've been talking about Andy Timmons previously, one of his basically household amps that he's been referring to for ages. It's interesting to see how Boogie will develop with respect to their product releases, and are they going to focus on smaller amps instead of bigger amps? How are they coping with the shortage of parts? And also, now being a part of the Gibson company, it'll be interesting to see how the distribution network will be rearranged. And yeah, I sent you another image, a third image that was titled "Bummer," and this is basically. Yeah, well, I can just read out. That's a reply that Boogie sent on Facebook, I guess, to a consumer who was asking when we can expect new product, and they basically said that they have been sharing with dealers that it looks like it will be early 2023 before they are shipping to Europe again. And I mean, considering that we're now in the mid of 2022, we talk about at least 6 months, if not longer, until we see a new Boogie product in Europe. And well, yeah, I think that's really a bummer for everyone that's interested in trying out one of those new amps. But yeah, the situation is how it is, and I would really like to hear what you guys think about that amp. Is that something that you would like to try out, or do you prefer bigger
what's
amps?
the price on it, Dan?
I'm not sure. I can figure that out.
Probably figure that out.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell because usually the export prices were much higher for Boogies than the US prices. So a Boogie in Europe is a boutique amp, whereas in the States it's like a bread and butter amp. So at the end, when we had distribution still with Boogie distribution still, the company, we were talking about $2,000 for a 4x12.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane, right? So.
Yeah. Well, I really want to try the amp. I've played only a few Mesa Boogies in my life. It's one of the amp brands that I really haven't gone that far, that near to, because they were considered boutique. Even to the point where a friend of mine flew to America, bought one and brought it home on a plane because it was far cheaper to do that than actually buy one locally, and then have it. I think he had to have the transformer, refitted. But yeah, I love small amps. I love small wattage amps that you can crank. I love them when they stay clean, and I'm hoping that Mesa Boogie continues to be Mesa Boogie after the Gibson acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
I got to play on that a Lone Star quite a bit. We have a Lone Star here that I've had for years. I got from Mesa at the NAMM show. I got the Lone Star, and I've had a couple other ones too. And the Lone Star is a fantastic amplifier. It's got a lot of flexibility and a lot of options for setting the power and things like that too. I know that Andy was talking about playing the new California ones, and but I don't think I got a chance to listen to him at his house. I listened to plenty of Lone Stars at his house, and but I love 6v6 tubes. Those are probably my favorite. So yeah, I haven't heard one of the new ones myself yet either.
Yeah, it's 6v6 is again bread and butter. I think Dan said, or homegrown or something. But yeah, 6v6 is that, and the L34s for me. That's pretty much all I need. The two sides. I don't go too high gain, so that does it for me. But yeah, I think that's a solid pick, Dan. Did you work out any pricing?
Yeah, they are around $2,000. So we talk about $1,850 for the head, $2,000 for the 1x10, and the 1x12 is $2,100.
Okay.
But here's the interesting part. They say that foot switch not included, which definitely should at that price point.
But $400.
Yeah. What? Switch authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I mean, I know people complain when you don't get a foot switch with amps and stuff, but I know that I have probably 6 or 7 foot switches lying around somewhere that would switch an amp. So, and also I would probably keep the Boogie foot switch safe so that if I ever wanted to sell the amp, it would look new.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a switch. It's just a switch. It'll do it. Okay, then I think because Robert has a very interesting pick this week, I think I'll go next, Robert, and then we can talk about your pick thirdly and finally. My pick this week will come shortly after my amazing jingle.
Andy's pick of the week.
Revitalized now. Right. My pick of the week is a pedal. It is a new Univibe with a reverb. It's the Univerb from J Rocket. And there's a little picture if you're watching the video version on screen, but I have it in my hand because they sent me one to make a review of it, and I did make a review. It's going online tomorrow, so I won't really say much about my thoughts on the pedal, but I will say that I had a jolly good time playing it, and I wish I could have used it at the live show last week, but I couldn't because people were posting social media stuff, and the pedal was only released yesterday. So I couldn't risk it. I didn't want to get in trouble. Not that many gear leakers come to Upper Austria to a small village festival and try to leak gear, but it could have happened. I didn't want it to happen to J Rocket. So it's a Univibe and a reverb in one. It does the chorus vibrato thing that you'd expect, and it also has a digital chip spring thingy in it. It's not a phaser. It is a Univibe. Sorry, it has got the light inside. It's quite expensive because it is quite expensive. Well, things are expensive at the moment, which I know Robert will back me up on this. But I've been going through a spate of choosing expensive pedals.
I was about to say that's like wow again.
It's 529 euros, which is a lot of money. And I won't give away too much about what I'm saying in the review video, but I will say that my favorite settings are when you can barely know that it's there, because it's just adding that firstly the reverb, but the Univibe side of it, when it's barely there, but when you turn it off, you get all disappointed because it's gone. That's that sound that I really enjoy, and then also of course the machine gun sound as well. But yeah, that's my pick of the week, and I will accept that it is expensive. But for the people that need something like that, need is a strong word. People that want something like that, it's a good choice.
So it's an analog Univibe. And then what kind of reverb is it? Like is it a FV1 spin reverb? Is it a belt and brick reverb?
It's
hang
on, I'll show you.
All right. Look at this.
Because I took it apart, and it's also the same one that's in this pedal. Yeah. It's the Accutronics Digilog Reverb BTDR2H, which is also in the Kaleidoscope from Jupiter Effects.
Yeah.
And what's weird is that I recognized it because I love this Kaleidoscope from Jupiter Effects. It's beautiful. The reverb is gorgeous. And I plugged the Univerb in, and I said, I know that reverb.
Sound. Yeah.
And I was right. And I'm genuinely shocked.
Pleased with yourself.
Yeah, a little bit too pleased, maybe. I had to call Chris Jupiter that made the Jupiter pedal and ask him. But yeah, great Univerb, great experience. You know when you just have a pedal and it's a wonderful, beautiful experience that is fun, and you just know that you're going to be playing that for a long time.
Yeah,
that's my experience with that pedal. 529 euros.
All right.
Prices are going up, huh?
Prices are going up.
Definitely.
Yeah. We'll surely get into that in a bit. Buzzle says Unfinished Bridges says $449. If you're talking about the Univerb, that would be good. Maybe there's an import thing going on, bringing it to Europe.
Well, we got parity at the moment between the US dollar and euro. So basically, if it's a US product, it will always be much more expensive than the US retail because you got to add like shipping costs and taxes and import and everything. It's crazy.
Yeah, $449 brand new on Reverb. Okay, well, I'm interested to know how I'm going to fare in best pick of the week this week. I'm curious.
Actually, can I make a point that you can actually purchase 2 of these guitars over there in the background for that one pedal? Yeah.
That's a good point. You could buy an entire rig for 529
euros.
Without,
if you don't go for the most expensive stuff, you can buy a pretty decent rig, yeah. Absolutely.
But J-Rocket are not trying to build a budget pedal. They're not trying to compete.
Of course.
They're building something that sounds like something Andy Timmons would play, for example. you're not necessarily going to need it at a bar gig, on the weekend.
Yeah.
I'd want it.
I mean, it's about $200 or so, $225 per effect. So
That's true. Yeah,
one
that's
type
true.
of thing. Univibes, especially analog univibes, are usually quite a bit more pricey. So
Exactly, it is. Another one came out from, I want to say, Copper Sounds or something like that. Cornerstone. Another Univibe came out from Cornerstone this week. Haven't played that one, but I saw that knocking around. I wonder how much that one is.
So on that note, do you think we have reached some sort of price peak? I don't want to steal your ideas previously, but that we discussed previously. But do you think like there's a threshold where a pedal is hardly sellable because it's just too expensive, or is it just like is there always a market for pedals like that?
me?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. No, I don't know. I'm probably not the best person to ask for that because I'm a pedal junkie. So I don't know. There's prices that are less favorable than other prices, but when you're searching for a certain sound or a holy grail sound, you know what I mean, or some understanding, you can ask Josh Scott. You can lay down some coin for a pedal.
True.
I think I'm doing some. I was on a hunt for some Nobles ODRs, and next thing you know, I had the price of a new car on a countertop. You know what I mean?
Whoa.
I think those original Nobles are going for $1,000 a piece
Yeah.
now, and then I was hunting some other guitar effects at the same time, and I was like, wow, I could get a used car for this. Have to keep track of these pedals.
They can get a hold of you, man. Sorry, one
yeah.
thing I didn't mention about the Univerb is there's an effects loop in between the vibe and the reverb, which is super handy because you can throw a drive in there, and that kind of changes everything. I missed that out.
Sweet.
Okay, let's move on to our third and final pick of the week, which comes from our wonderful guest, Mr. Robert Keeley. Robert, what did you choose, my friend?
For my pick of the week,
Yes.
I'm going to pick vacuum tubes. I'm going to pick RCA vacuum tubes. I'm a little stale, maybe 50, 60 years old, but let me tell you, these tubes here are delicious
So you got
sounding.
some tongue soles
These are
there.
these are some 1950s, not to be confused with the ones that New Sensor Corp is sending out. These are some Jans. I think these are 1962-ish. Oops, I'm trying to get my spatial dimensions going there.
I can put you just there. There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then got some nothing works as well as an old American 12 AT7. They seem to go bad in Fenders all the time, so whenever you get a Fender in, it's always a good thing to check the 12 AT7 in it. But I also got some fabulous German ones, these Siemens.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And these are some great 6L6s. So I was going to put this in a twin, 100-watt twin with master volume and JBLs. I was going to put that in that quad in there. So my pick of the week is a good old new old stock vacuum tube. You know what I mean? I'll take French ones. I'll take British ones. I'll take American ones. They're all fantastic. So that's my
Robert,
pick
Can
of
I
the
ask,
week.
like, how much money are we talking for the things you just had in your hand?
Okay, well, these I'm kind of showing off because
Okay.
these very old ones were probably about between 125 and so a piece. I think about 125 a piece. You can easily spend $250 on some of these guys a piece now, and if you get some Telefunken tubes, the If they got a diamond on the bottom and they're this kind of plate, you can spend $1,000 for a
Wow.
triode. Yeah. So, yeah. but
That's insane.
but there is good news.
Okay.
If you get on there and you search, you can find vacuum tubes that were made in the 80s. Usually they're like Philips and maybe some GE, and you can find some American tubes in the $50 price range. So I know that is a lot of money, but it's been my experience that they can last 40 or 50 years and still be in
Wow.
great shape. So, some those American tubes, certain, especially like I was saying, like with the 12AT7 in the phase inverter position, those things are just great to have an American tube in there. And $50 instead of replacing it for $20 3 or 4 times probably comes out about the same. But I don't know. There's I don't know. They're expensive, but to me they're worth it. You know what I mean? They just sound a little bit better.
How much better? That's the question we've just had in the chat. Like, does not NOS stuff sound better? Is it?
In my I mean, if I were to try to put a number to it, I would say maybe 10% better. Maybe it's between 0 and 10%. You're like, man, that sounds creamier. I would definitely prefer to listen to that type of distortion, that fizz, that edge on the distortion, with this American tube being a little softer, a little rounder, and maybe more complex even. And then you put another tube in there, and it might distort it the same amount. But it might have more noise and just be a little harsher sounding. So, but it's not worlds apart, not always. But only rarely have I seen where I'm like, wow, that's an amazing difference. That you know what I mean? It's usually on the small scale.
I think 10% is quite a large number. That's
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
I
more
mean,
than
I think
acceptable.
it's noticeable. It's noticeable. You know what I mean? So at least 10% better.
I wonder how it compares, like, to if you bought like a $50 overdrive compared to, like, say, a $400 overdrive. You can get these real basic cheap pedals that are cloned and built somewhere cheaply, or get an expensive hand-built thing. I wonder what that kind of ratio is in comparison.
Good question. Sometimes people can build, pedals inexpensively and they sound great because, they sound great. There's just the electronic parts in there produce a distortion sound that's not that hard to make. So, you can spend $150 or $300 on a distortion pedal and they might be identical. You know what I mean? So on the tubes thing, it's, again, they're supposed to both be, say, an amplifier with a gain of 100. So they should be performing a similar job. So these are, slight tonal characteristics. So like if you compare, a tube screamer with, a few mods to it, just the smallest a number of mods, now it sounds worlds different than the original. So, $50 worth of mods, it can make a huge change in the sound. And so it's kind of hard to compare that with a vacuum tube, the dollar to tone difference type price, because you can change a 10-cent part in a pedal and make it sound, really bassy, or, you know what I mean? Or something like that. And you can't do that with a tube, They don't have, they shouldn't have overwhelming bass differences. It should be pretty similar, So.
Wow.
And, just one question: where do you source those old kind of tubes?
Where exactly do you source them?
Well, in this particular case, I've had a great time looking at the Tube Depot recently. But over time, there's a place called KCA NOS Tubes, and I think there's the Tube Store in Canada. I think that a lot of my friends on the forum were telling me about that place up in Canada, and I used to get a lot of them on eBay. There used to be, but now it's much more junk up there now. But and you used to be able to go to military surpluses. I mean, just 15, 20 years ago, you used to be able to go to military surpluses and bid on boxes of tubes that, so I just have I have a tube collection that I've been nursing for a couple decades. So
If you were to put that in the number, how many tubes are we talking about? If you
I
say
have
you've got a tube
hundreds
collection.
of tubes, maybe. I've got, I don't know. I think I have like say 10 moving containers full of old NOS tubes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's
So
a retirement fund,
sometimes I've bought
Yeah.
them because I wanted to do a project. Like for example, there's I have a bunch of RCA 6K6s. That's not a very common tube. A 6K6 is used in the Fender reverb tanks. And so I have got a huge collection, over 100 of these 1950s RCA 6K6s that are brand new, you know what I mean? And I'm ready to make a killer, spring reverb. Actually, I want to make it a spring reverb and a digital reverb, like a digital halo reverb or something, so that you can choose whether you have a DSP reverb or the spring, or you can combine them, in one sort of sit on top of the amp type of unit. So you'd have a little, the ability to control it with MIDI or something like that. Just throw it over the top. But I would like something like that. So
I'm sure a
That
lot of
sounds
people
really
would
fun.
like that as well, right?
Definitely.
a lot.
Absolutely. Okay, then, gentlemen, we do a little thing now.
all,
Robert,
all
called-
kinds of
Sorry, yeah, exactly. We do a thing called buy, borrow, or burn now, and because we've had three choices, we play this little game where we take those three choices, and each one of us has to decide which one of those things we would buy, which one of those things we would borrow, and which one of those things we would burn. And we play it in the live chat as well. And because there's three, you have to choose
buy,
one for
borrow,
each
or
one.
burn.
Buy,
Yep.
borrow, or burn. So I won't push you to go first. People in the chat, if you've got questions for Robert, by the way, we'll be going to your questions very, very soon. I would like to know what you would buy, borrow, or burn this week. So we've got my Univerb pedal, we've got Dan's Mesa Boogie amp, and we've got Robert's NOS tubes. Let us know in the live chat what you're going to buy, borrow, or burn, and we'll have a little guess, shall we, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to buy, borrow, or burn. Buy, borrow, or burn. Right. I'm going to guess for Dan, so I'll go first.
Okay.
Dan,
All right.
I think that you would buy the Mesa Boogie amp. I think you would borrow Robert's tubes to put in there and try them, and I think you would therefore have to burn the Univerb.
I don't have to think too hard about that. It's spot on. Spot on.
Pretty clear.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to lose this week.
And the explanation was also perfect. All right, now I go for Robert. Okay, so Robert would buy the tubes just because he wants to add more to his collection and experiment more and create some even more exciting products in the near future. He would probably borrow the California Tweed and have Andy Timmons come over and play it in his house, and he would borrow the pedal because he probably has hundreds of pedals laying around. He doesn't need another one from another company. How is that, Robert?
Well, isn't he supposed to say I should burn the pedal so I can make it again?
I think you mean
didn't
burn
think
the
he had
pedal.
yeah.
Burn the pedal, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you got it right. I would burn the pedal, so I'll just go back in the shop here and make another one.
There you go.
You guys can make another one. So yeah, I'd burn the Halo so I could go back and get another one. But I would definitely borrow the Univerb. I think that's a cool idea. I like the way it looks
okay.
too. I like that case,
Okay.
as a matter of fact. It's a pretty cool case they had. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
They made
it's-
their own case for that, huh? Yep.
Yeah,
That looks
J
pretty
Rocket
good.
cases are. It is like a standard J Rocket case, but it's a double width one. So
Yeah,
I love J Rocket stuff. I've got a lot of
Yeah.
time for them.
nice stuff.
So did Dan get close, Robert? So you would borrow
I
the
think so.
Univerb.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And burn Wait, I don't know.
Like
I guess I can't remember what I do with the California tweet. I guess I got us confused, but
Yeah.
so I'm not sure.
As a guest, you can borrow both.
Okay, I'll
the
borrow
California
both then.
tweet. Yeah.
Oh, come on, pushing the boundaries here, Daniel. But I'm fine
Helping
with
me
it.
out.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the live chat. The live chat. We've got Michael would burn the authentic amp. Sorry, Dan. Buy the NOS tubes for speculation and borrow the J Rockets pedal.
See, another
Fergie
scalper,
in France.
right?
Another scalper, exactly.
Yeah.
Fergie in France would buy the Mesa, borrow the tubes to try in the Mesa, and sadly burn the Univerb. So Fergie in France is in the same camp as Dan. Paul Crane would buy the pedal, borrow the valves, and burn the amp. Nice, Paul Crane. Good choice. Well done. Buzzle would burn the J Rocket. It's too expensive. Borrow the Mesa and buy the NOS tubes to try out in his amps.
There you go.
Amanda would buy the amp, borrow the pedal, and burn the tubes because maybe fireworks.
Hey, that's pretty creative. There you go.
Yeah, that's Canadian creativity there from Amanda. Thank
Exploding
you, Amanda.
vacuums. Yeah.
Then where we got? We've got Studio Camille would buy the tubes, borrow the Univerb, and burn the Mesa Boogie because of the lack of the foot switch.
Yeah, that's a deal
Wonderful.
breaker for sure. Yeah.
It's a deal breaker, yeah.
Valeria?
I didn't. Yeah, I can't put them on screen for some reason. But what did
Okay.
Valeria choose, Dan?
She said, buy all the tubes, borrow the boogie just because I'm curious about the play authentic side of the force, and burn the Univibe. Sorry, Andy, she ran out of options.
Darn it! By default, I've lost.
Yeah, kinda. But I think you gotta kind of settle on more affordable amps a little bit, because these amps lately have been so expensive. I mean,
Do you mean pedals, Dan?
yeah, pedals. What did I say? Amps? No,
Amps, yeah.
I'm in pedals. Yeah, these are so expensive lately.
Sorry,
know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I can't help
I'm
it.
constantly
I'm not
constantly
in.
talk and worry about the price of our pedals. I've been afraid of this inflation for quite a while, and kind of armchair predicting that it was going to go out of control like this. I thought that when people weren't complaining about the prices going up in the very initial stages of COVID, when there'd be shortages of, I don't know, toilet paper or what have you, and no one complained. We had too many things to focus on besides the price increase at that point in time. And I thought, nah, this is too quiet. I think this is going to just allow rampant price increases. And I still haven't seen anything that's ever going to tame it back. One of you guys was asking, do you think the max prices occurred with pedals? And I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I can't see an end to this inflation yet. So it is kind of scary, because it eventually then it causes a recession. So it's kind of gloomy.
Yeah,
You know, what I mean?
there is a ceiling.
Yes, and so I don't want to push pedal prices higher. I kind of like having them in this affordable thing where they're kind of like a drug, and you can just get, maybe a pedal or two a year, or 3 or 4. So I don't want to see them. Get too expensive. I got to have it.
Robert, the professional
up.
dealers,
Exactly.
they give the first one for free, and then you're addicted.
That's right. That's right. That's why I started with mods. They were only $50, and pedals were $100. So I was like, hey, I can get people hooked on this a little cheaper.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, Robert, there is a story of you doing exactly that thing.
Right.
We've got a message in the chat from Studio Camille, who was at GitCon, if you remember the GitCon event
Oh, I
in
absolutely
Germany.
do. I was just talking about GitCon with Hans Peter. Hans Peter and his son Nicholas were just here last Friday. I went out to
wow.
dinner with
Oh, wow.
them. They came all the way from, Mark Neukirchen, Germany,
Yep.
and they visited a bunch of places, and they stopped in here, had that most absolutely wonderful time with them. And so I do remember GitCon. You were there?
I was there. Andy
I
was
was
there?
not. But
Yeah.
the super chat, I had a super chat from Michiel, so thank you for the super chat. He sent us €5.
Oh, Memphis Sun is always on my board. Still grateful. Thank you so much.
Sweet.
Yeah, but he says that you gave all GitCon volunteers a free choice pedal. So
I
as Dan
did.
said, the first one
I
is
love
free.
giving stuff away. Yep.
That's
How
very-
funny. You're so right. Yeah. I like giving stuff away.
Can we just
well-
take a moment to appreciate that Warwick turned 40 years this year, so they have their 40th anniversary. So bringing basses to the stages and to the music shops for 40 years now. I think it's a great achievement in that fast-paced industry. So yeah, applause to them.
Applause is right.
Absolutely.
Yep, they deserve it.
40 years.
Mm-hmm.
1 year younger than me. Such a young company. Such a young company. Yeah, so we've got questions for Robert in the chat. If you've got them, throw them in the chat now, and I will put them on a little
I see
pile
there's all
and
kinds of
try and-
people up here I recognize. I don't know if I see
Cool.
them in the chat, but I see Justin Prince, and I saw Gunnar Harmon. He's a friend of mine, and Brett Hume, I think. And yeah,
We've got
all right. There's all kinds of people.
Yeah.
lots of people I recognize that I've seen on other channels as well. So welcome to this channel. Welcome. Hope you stay. Hope you have fun and kick off your shoes and put your feet up.
Yeah.
But Robert, firstly, we didn't really say it, but thank you so much for coming on the show. You genuinely are one of the main people that we wanted to get on the show for a long time, and we really, really
Well,
appreciate
thank
your
you.
time.
Oh, I appreciate being able to come on here and talk. In my own little world in Oklahoma, it's a magical experience here at the company, because all we do is tinker around with either building pedals or building new sounds, and so it's great. It's a nice environment. The new factory is not even a year old, so it's still got the new car smell, and it's so as long as you have parts arriving on time, everything else has been gravy.
Yeah.
Good. That's good to hear.
Smooth. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, so I guess we should really get into, before Dan gets too itchy, we should talk about Andy Timmons and the Halo pedal, because as I've shown, I have one right here. Robert, you sent it about a couple of weeks ago for me to do a video, and I have plugged it in and I have played through it, and I lost hours. So thank you
Yeah.
very much for getting me deeply in trouble, because I should have been doing responsible things, and I knew I wasn't making the video immediately.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those pedals where there's so much going on, but yet everything is so much fun, and you can create layers, and you can try and pretend to be Andy Timmons. And
Yeah.
I've got a confession to make. Can I make a confession?
Of course.
Yes, sir.
Robert, I watched the Sweetwater video you did with Aaron and Andy.
Yeah.
And then I went out and bought a black denim jacket, just like Andy Timmons wore in the video.
You know what? I've noticed that black denim jacket too. It does look so good on him. And not only have I thought about getting a black denim jacket, I didn't go all the way, but I did buy the guitar. I got an Ibanez, just like
Oh, sweet.
I had him sign
8100.
it. So,
Okay.
yeah, there's so much to like about Andy, including the black jacket. That is a fact. He's a sharp dresser, a good
Yeah,
guy.
his name alone is worth it.
Yeah. And so it has been
fantastic.
a lot of fun.
Yeah. Can you take us a little bit on the journey of how that pedal came about? Because I think, if I recall correctly, you've been talking with him about the idea and kind of what you could do in facilitating people to get his tone. Basically, I think he called it give him the keys to the treasure chest, or to the castle, or to the kingdom, or something like that. Where maybe other musicians would have said, no, I want to keep my secrets. But he was very much embracing the thought that his idea of a good tone would be accessible to everyone else out there in the community that are most often chasing his tone. So how did the whole collaboration came about with him?
Yeah. Daniel Steinhardt got us together, and Daniel said, hey, Robert would be a pretty good person to work on. His team is capable of making some sounds. And so we were introduced, and I think it was about 3.5 years ago at a NAMM show. And about 2.5 years ago, one Valentine's Day time frame, a few years back, 3 years back, Andy came up to drove up to Oklahoma, and we put him up overnight. And we thought we were going to demo him what we could do with our Echoes pedal at the time, and see what we needed to do to get it closer. Because our my initial thought was, okay, he's wanting this dotted eighth note into a quarter note type delay sound. And we were having a lot of fun at the time with the Echoes pedal, and this flanged delay sound. So we were getting things to sound pretty good. He came up, and um, it, it was amazing watching him play, and how familiar how comfortable he was with his sounds, and how different our pedal sounded when we mocked up an Echoes. That was my recollection. Is like, wow, that's kind of interesting, because we're nowhere close. You know what I mean?
Okay.
We don't have it's not happening. And it was like, wow, that's a lot to think about with that modulation. And then pretty much right after that, it kind of collapsed, because I had some issues with the old heart, and had to get it rewired for true bypass. And all of a sudden, Andy doesn't know anything about all the trials and tribulations, but he's like, "Hey, I thought we were going to work on a pedal together. Uh, let me know what's up." And I'm like, "Holy cow! I have totally blown that off, and haven't been thinking about it at all. Let me get my guys on this and see what we can do." And so the one thing that we got from that initial meeting, and the reason I bring it up that 3 years ago, is he shared with us what he had come to at that point in time, after decades of searching for the right delay sound. And that was kind of built into these secret settings he had on his Strymon timeline. And so it was at that point in time that we got his settings on the timeline that were as far as he had gotten with his Halo sound. And that's, taking the Memory Men and all kinds of other tape delays and things like that. And then eventually getting to the point where he was using that Strymon. And so we were armed with, what we were, what the goal was to reach that sound that was in there. And it honestly took us, I think the programming and stuff like that took the better part of a year to
Wow.
analyze, what they were doing to make it sound so good. Because Strymon products sound great, you know what I mean? And um, understand enough about it and how to create it that we could then manipulate it and get even closer to what Andy wanted. And that's what we spent a good 6 months on, tracking down every nuance to the sound, every oddity of noise that might, because there's lots of analog and digital circuits in here, all on top of each other. So we got to, hunt down everything, because his ears are really, really fantastic. He knows exactly what he's listening for. He knows what he's striving for, and he knows what makes him feel comfortable. And he's very emotional player. So uh, he's just really in tune with it. So you have to, really focus on listening to the exact things that he's listening to, and then trying to make sure that the engineers hear what direction they need to go in. So it was a very complicated and, time consuming type of project. But every time he would come up, or we'd go down there, it was literally the hair on your arms coming up, and just ecstatic high fives, because once you'd get another part of the sound down, and uh, he was like, he switched away from the Strymon timeline, and ran ours from then on. And that's pretty exciting, to help a guy that's been searching for the perfect delay sound in his mind for decades. And he's like, yeah, this is it. And you could tell in his playing, at least I could tell in his playing, that he was composing and writing around it, or or feeling it so much that it was inspiring, play. So it was an amazing process. Pedal development doesn't usually go like that at all. It's also noisy and painful, but in a different way. you know.
Aren't all births, I guess.
Yes, exactly. It is 100% like a birthing.
Again, to refer to the Sweetwater video that you're in with Andy and Aaron, you can really tell that Andy is truly behind that pedal and inside that pedal as well, and in front of it. He's not just. There was no second where I thought that man is just trying to sell a pedal. He is solving a problem, or that rather the pedal is solving his problem. And he was just really, really enjoying it, making music with it. It was wonderful to watch. I recommend everybody goes to watch the Sweetwater video.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
That's exactly the case. That's what's so fun working with him continuously on this, is that he's not really a salesman, but he's the best at talking about the pedal, because it's like an extension of what he's always wanted. So he's like, yeah, here it is. This is exactly how I, start making music.
Yeah.
So
I have a question actually about that video. Did you really go down the slide at Sweetwater?
I did. If you watch all the way at the end there, if you watch at the end, I
didn't see
the
did
end. Selfie video, believe it or not. At the very, very, very last couple seconds, it's like a bloopers outtake, and it shows me going down filming it too.
Okay, that's what I'm going to do when we finish the show. Go and watch you go wee.
Yeah.
Brilliant. There's something Dan and I were throwing around as we were planning for this show. I say planning, sending random WhatsApp messages. There's a very famous pedal you do with Dan and Mick from that pedal show called the D and M drive, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is like a blues breaker style drive and a Klon style drive.
Yep, that's right. No. It's actually an OCD style on the left side, and then the Klon style on the right side.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got the basic concept is you've got Dan's side and Mick's side, and you've got the, as you said, OCD and the Klon. We thought it would be fun if we made a D and A pedal, a Dan and Andy pedal, just in the show, some kind of concept. And Dan and I haven't spoken about it, but we were going to talk about what our sides would be. And if you're in the chat, and if you could make a pedal that would have two separate pedals that then Robert could build, what would it be? And if we had a Guitar Stories podcast double pedal, Dan, do you have any thoughts on your sides? Your side, sorry?
My side, that's a tough one. My side, I'm always a big fan, or have been a big fan of those kind of lush and fat tones that you can use as a nuance to your overdrive tone. So you just put it on top. So some sort of like a really fat and singing lead tone that you can also use if you just want to fatten up a rather clean signal, but it really shines when it comes on top of a already slightly distorted signal. So I think that would be something that would be my bread and butter. So
what would that be based on? If you could name like an existing pedal that does that.
That's a tough one. One of the pedals, I'm not sure if that would fit the bill, but probably something like a BB preamp from Exotic.
Okay,
something like that.
Another Andy Timmons pedal then.
No, like the regular one. I mean, he has a signature one. The regular one, he had a signature one back in the day that was slightly different from circuitry, but like the original BB preamp, I think that would be something that I always found useful. Yeah. That would probably be my side of things here. Would you go for something less conventional?
I would want to go for some really nasty angry fuzz.
What a surprise!
Yeah. What a surprise! So we're talking, but something that could do like Big Muff, but something with the op amp Big Muff, because you can get those mids back and be heard in a mix, but also something maybe DS1, so that kind of area. Maybe a little ratty also. Just something that could go nice and angry, but also you could back off and get some sweet lead tones as well. but maybe has a switch that goes from polite to socially unacceptable.
Sweet.
Right.
I want to see these exactly on the dial, right? Polite, socially
Polite,
unacceptable.
socially unacceptable.
And also, I think what the pedal definitely should have, and I hope you would agree for your side of the DNA pedal as well, would be to have knobs that you can kind of push down. You can lock them in the pedal, so they
Like
stand.
the
They
Ibanez
don't
tone lock. Yes.
like the tone locks, so they stand out because if you have a sturdy pedal with that kind of construction, it will just stand the test of time and just last forever.
I love the tone lock series. I love the fact that you can push the switches in. It's yet another thing that I can fiddle with. So absolutely, yes, I would want them on there.
You guys don't care whether they break that whole switching mechanism.
Does
that
it?
Tone locks.
I
I think it's probably more prone to failure than not, but
Okay.
I think it's more prone to failure also. However, I've got several tone lock pedals that have
That have
definitely
never
been
broken?
well played and they're not broken. So
good.
yeah, I hear you on that one. But I've picked up some cheap Ibanez pedals that are still fully functional. So
Yeah. that
Talk about
the Tone Lock
TS10,
series is
right?
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting to see that, to get that kind of perspective from a pedal builder, that a unique selling proposition back in the day that was meant to kind of convey that these are built to last forever is actually something that's not necessarily the case, right? Because the construction is less prone to breakage. That's interesting.
Well, I've fixed a lot of stuff in the past, and anytime there's a mechanical point, that's going to be almost the first failure, and then the power supply is next. So, if it's moving around and swinging around, it's probably going to break. Is how I think. So
That's a good point.
I don't know. I like switches too, so
Yeah.
I'm an equal opportunity switch installer. So.
Since you brought it up, can we take a second to briefly touch base on the part of the power supply of pedals, from your perspective as not just a pedal builder but also a pedal nerd? How important is a good power supply, and what should you look after if you're looking for a good power supply? Are there any kind of indicators that differentiate the good from the not so good ones, or even the cheap ones? What's your advice?
Well, the power supplies I like best. I guess I'm a little bit more old school. I'm kind of narrow focused. I like the old Voodoo Labs pedal power 2s. I really like those. They were very understandable. They were easy to use, and they were isolated. And so they didn't cause noises to be injected into the system. And so I kind of like the little bit more old school stuff. So, but that's not the way that pedals are going and power supplies are going. They're going to the switching power supplies. So I'll take the new, pedal power 3 is a switching power supply type of thing. And of course the new, all the Strymon stuff is. So there are lots of good switching power supplies. So what I found is that they vary in the amount of noise, of course, that they can inject into your system, and how they can talk with certain other high current digital pedals. So some of the digital pedals by Strymon or Electro Harmonics, a variety of other companies, when you put those on a switching power supply, sometimes the clock signals in my pedal and in their pedal in the power supply can kind of talk and start to sing in an unharmonized fashion and create all kinds of buzzes and whirs. So that's just something we have to kind of go through and check all the major power supplies with, so it's a consideration. We try to make sure that the filtering in our pedals blocks out any kind of low frequency stuff like AC hum from poor wiring in the house or what have you, and then being able to reject high frequency noises that come in through the power supply or from other people's power supplies. So you just got to kind of look at it and pay attention to a variety of power supplies. You know what I mean? And you can't expect people to use old school transformer type power supplies anymore. So you have to just design around it to take that into consideration.
Okay.
So,
It's
but I
amazing the
just listen for the
detail that
noise.
goes into this. Sorry.
Yeah, I just, if I was a consumer and I was trying to evaluate power supplies, I would probably just get a couple, two or three very high current digital type effects pedals and plug them into the power supply, and then crank up the amplifier and listen to the background noise that's generated when the pedals are on, and then switch to another power supply and see if you can try to make a comparison. Oh wow, I heard a lot of noises there, or I didn't. You know what I mean? And that it's not easy to do that experiment. You have to have a couple power supplies sitting around, and you have to have a relatively decent memory of the amount of noise that you had going. You could record it, I guess. So,
Yeah.
but and evaluate it that way. But you can hear it. There's a difference between the Voodoo Labs Pedal Power 3 and the Pedal Power 2, and there's a difference between the Zuma and the MXR DC Brick. They all have different background noises. So they're all relatively small, but
Okay. So if you internally are developing a pedal and you want to judge the sound quality, how do you A/B sounds? Do you just rely on your ears, or do you actually track that with some sort of recorders and then kind of go between variant A and B?
I haven't done a lot of recording and listening to them kind of blind like that. That's an interesting kind of way to do it. But no, I think that we're just a little bit more rock and roll or a little bit more punk than that. I've got uh, a guy, Aaron Pierce, that has got a Andy Timmons like mentality and set of ears, and so those two got along just great when we were developing the pedal. The pedal wouldn't be what it was if it wasn't for Aaron and Andy getting along as well as they did, But no, my ears used to be pretty darn good, and so when you put both of us together, that's kind of how we do it. A lot of A/B testing, and then testing on different guitars, amplifiers, and power supplies. So, but no, we're not. I haven't started recording samples and then trying to listen to them back to see if I can second guess it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a
you
good
absolutely
idea,
should.
though.
You could create some kind of
I know.
nerd
Now that
database.
sounds like a pretty good idea, bud.
Yeah, I'd watch that video if you made it. The pedal,
Yeah.
the power supply comparison.
No, I think I would like to do something like that, because you can if you use pedals that again draw a lot of current, you can kind of stress the power supplies. Or if you put a digital effects with the switching power supply, you can sometimes get them to act up, and I don't know, you can make a difference. It depends on the pedals too, so a certain pedal may or may not be noisy with a certain power supply or not. It's really hard to tell.
Can we go to the live chat for a question, Robert? Is that okay?
Sure. I don't. Yeah.
I've got it here. It's a rather specific question from Cranar.
Right.
And he's asked, have you ever thought about making anything similar to the Shin-Ei B1G preamp pedal? Cheers.
Great question, sir. And I have absolutely never thought about it, because I don't know what the B1G preamp pedal is. So I don't know.
Neither
I don't
do
have
I.
any street cred anymore. I'm not cool. I'm not cool in a lot of books now. But
B1G.
no, I don't know that Shanae
It's
B1G preamp pedal.
Shin-Ei.
I feel really bad. Yeah.
Is it? I'm just googling in it. There is.
Shin-Ei B1G.
So they're the guys that did the Univibe, of course, and B1G. They've done in what looks like a reissue. I've never heard of this pedal, and I'm really sorry for putting you on the spot, but
No, that's quite all right.
I was hoping to learn something. It is to quote them, it says, it is in effect an analog preamp on par with vintage and modern recording studio channel strips with some extra added love. That sounds a
Yeah.
bit marketing, but
Yeah.
doesn't really say anything about the pedal at all. But it looks like it's got one drive knob, so it's a switch and a drive.
There is
Sounds
something pretty
interesting.
attractive about a one knob drive pedal. Earlier you mentioned, Andy, how your dream pedal, your DNA pedal had a big muff op amp and maybe a little DS1 and maybe a little rad, but oh the I've thought about for a long time having like a one knob DS1 pedal. The
Oh, wow.
tone is
Okay.
fixed.
Uh-huh.
The volume might be handled all at the same time, but a big knob on a pedal. It's just a one knob DS1. I think that would be a really killer pedal.
The DS1 is my favorite pedal of all time, and I have
Yeah.
13 of them. So
Yeah.
I would happily welcome a big knob DS1.
Yeah. Even if you don't build it, it will make for a great April Fool's joke.
Yeah,
It
I
would.
think I can. I know a guy who can do that for you.
I
I'll
don't
have
know,
to-
but the
I'll have to-
DS1, it's as much the color as it is. I've got one right here. It's as much the color and the classic aesthetic as it is the sound. I just feel at home with it.
That's
This is
awesome.
Rene. I bought this used. Someone wrote Rene on it and put some mirror tabs on top. And
Okay.
I have no idea why, but this is Rene.
If you like DS1 so much, you got to hear my Steve Vai DS1 story.
Oh yeah.
Go for it, please.
This is back when I very, very first started, and I was living out in this mobile home, this trailer home, and that's where the company started, in this Kojak building outside the manufactured home. But I got a call from Dave Weiner, if I'm not mistaken, and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna send you Steve Vai's pedals to look at." I was like, "Wonderful! This is so awesome!" And about a week or so later, he's like, "Hey, those pedals get there?" And I was like, "Nope, haven't seen them." And
Oh no.
meanwhile, at the same time, this gives you a good indication of my character. So at the same time, um, the service tech had checked in a couple of DS1 pedals that were like almost glued to this piece of wood, and there was just road and tour grime all over these two DS1 pedals. And I remember telling the guys, I was like, "Oh man, that's it. If people won't put a return address and they send us pedals that are so dirty, we're just not going to look at them
Yeah.
until they tell us who the heck they are. Who would have the nerve to send us these crappy pedals, you know?" And then so Dave calls back like a week later, "Hey, you got those pedals yet?" And I'm like, "Nope, don't got them. I don't have any pedals from Steve Vai," you know? And so it goes back and forth like this for literally like 3 weeks. And he's like, "Okay, I guess I'm going to have to get a tracking on this, you know?" And I suddenly I look around and I'm like, I see something like North Hollywood or Pasadena on there. And I'm like, uh-oh, these are Steve Vai's pedals that I've been dissing on for weeks. I'm like, "Oh no, yeah, I got the pedals. I'll be back with you in just a bit." And so I had so much fun when I got those pedals. I put on that Steve Vai Live in an Ultra World was just coming out, or I was just becoming aware of it, and I started coming up with the idea to use the LEDs mounted externally so you could see them light up when you were creating the distortion. So on that Seeing Eye mod that I did for Steve Vai back then, that was me just getting the distortion to kind of run up into that LED that was mounted on the tone and come back down. So at any rate, it was fun, because then they went from being, "Okay, this is the bottom of the barrel, man. We're just modding anybody's piece of junk," to, "Oh no, these were handled by Steve Vai. These are magic pedals," you know. But there's some pictures of him somewhere. But yeah, he had some really cool ones, and they were definitely worn out. He had definitely loved them and stomped on them and everything.
Yeah.
Those are cool pedals.
We were surprised to see that we were at the Vi concert. I think 3 weeks ago. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah, let's say 3 weeks.
Yeah, and we were surprised to see that he went back to using his old like Gemini pedal and old guitars. So kind of him visiting that old stuff from several maybe decades ago. That was pretty interesting to see, and I wonder why that was. Was he kind of tonally revisiting us? Did his ears change? And that kind of leads me to a point when working with artists. How does the approach in designing the pedal change for you as a pedal builder? Apart from just like having that respected, incredible human being that's knocking on your front door and trying to get a pedal.
Yeah. No, you bring up a really great point because, and that's kind of an understanding that I am very glad that I came across. When I saw artists switch from using my pedals in the early days to another pedal manufacturer, or when I lured a customer, an artist, away from somebody else that they had previously been using, my understanding is that if they were really a musician, that they would probably get tired of the sound with my pedal and search for something else to find some inspiration. So I chose not to get butthurt when somebody would walk away from using my pedals. And I think it served me well because, like what you said, Dan, it was that my taste changes, and that's going to totally affect the product that we deliver. If I'm not in a metal mode, I'm not going to create the best sounding metal pedal or a high gain distortion pedal that my team is capable of. That's again why this collaboration with Andy Timmons is so golden, such a treat, such a rewarding experience, because our headspace of all the creative elements, we're all in the same place, all five of us, we're all in the same place. So yeah, it's very hard sometimes when it's like, okay, you really been wanting to do some kind of phaser, and it's like, well, I'm tired of phasers, I'm all phasered out, the last thing I want to do is a univibe, I like this other univibe by one of my this guy in Argentina. So it is funny because it will definitely affect your work if you're trying to design a world-class product, or something that sounds good. I mean, one of the pedals I kind of point to in my own collection that I've never been really satisfied with, we had a pedal called a Stahlhammer, and the steel hammer. The Stahlhammer was a rat pedal with a Marshall tone stack instead of the simple filter control. It was going to have a bass, middle, and treble. And it never did turn out right because I didn't get I think the tone control kind of brought down the gain level. So it didn't become this great rat pedal with a great, killer, tone stack in it. It became kind of a little bit anemic in my mind. And to me, it sounds kind of almost sterile because the tone brought down, the gain stage and stuff like that. So sometimes when you're not in the right mood, you can, strike out on a design because you weren't, your ears weren't working. You weren't in tune with the style of music or whatever that needed to be done. So yeah, all those things come into play. It's kind of interesting.
It's nice to hear that, though, because at least you can be authentic, and it must be like referring to what you said about how long the Halo took to put together and to come from conception to actually releasing it. There's a danger that you could fall out of love with it, but having someone like Andy involved obviously strongly reduces that possibility.
Yeah, but it has happened where by the time the product comes out, you're not only, it's not that you're tired of it, but you've worn yourself out on that sound. So, you just have no choice but to get away from it and clean your ears out and move on to something else, So you don't always have hit singles. So
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's time we wrap this up because I think I need to go away and play this Halo pedal for a start. But
All right.
yeah, Robert, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you guys. I'm ready to make the DNA pedal, the Dan and Andy pedal.
Do it. I've changed my mind though. I will just have that one knob DS1 on my side, please.
Well, I'm going to do that for you, 100%.
You've absolutely convinced me.
You're going to be my beta tester on that idea. I've been waiting to find the right DS1 guy.
Right. I'm thinking like, you remember the film Back to the Future where he's going through and turning all the amps up and stuff? Those kind of knobs, that would be amazing.
Sweet. Oh yeah, big one.
Well, maybe it could tick.
Right. So it should be called the flux capacitor.
Yeah, something like that. Something that, or the disaster one or something.
Yeah.
There's probably already a pedal called the disaster one.
I once saw an Austrian band. They called their compressor. They called it the Leiwandizer, and Leiwand is Austrian's like dialect for being great or being exceptional. And so the Leiwandizer. I really like
Yes. That's a good one.
Leiwandizer. Yeah.
Leiwandizer.
Leiwandizer. That's even nice to say. That really does.
It is.
Roll off
Yeah.
the tongue. Leiwandizer.
Yeah, you'd win with that one.
Yeah.
You don't have a Leiwandizer? Oh.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You got to check this band out. They've got a Leiwandizer.
Oh.
Right. Dan, would you ask everybody to please leave us 5 stars feedback when they're feeding back?
Of course. If you enjoyed that episode of Pedal Peak on the show, please make sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or on Spotify. Make sure to click and subscribe to Rob's channel. Check out the website. Make sure to test the Halo pedal because it's gorgeous, and I personally can't wait to try mine. Yeah. And apart from that, just be nice to each other and make sure to tune in next week. We have another great guest. And as for now, Robert, thanks so much for being our guest on the show.
you. Thank you, everybody. So
It
very
really was
nice.
a privilege.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Robert. Thank you so much. Okay, I wish you the best of the rest of your day, and also thank you to Aaron as well for helping set this
Oh,
up.
yeah.
And yeah, really good fun and quite insightful and chilled. It was lovely, chilled. I feel schooled, but I feel like you've, in a Bob Ross kind of way, you've schooled me. I really enjoyed it.
I'll take a Bob Ross compliment. That guy's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for watching, everybody. We will see you next week, as Dan said, and have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
bye.
Guitar Stories Podcast, your #1 show for